These wonderful verses from the Gattu of True Faith, beautifully composed by Venerable Master Shinran, perfectly introduced the essential teachings on the true Pure Land path, taught by Shakyamuni Buddha, and transmitted down to him through the ages by the 7 lineage masters. With deep reverence and gratitude for the benevolence of these outstanding teachers, he carefully selected and specifically pinpointed those teachings that are deeply rooted in Amida Buddha's primal vow. In his vast treasury of expositions, the Venerable Master strongly urges all of us to single-mindedly place our trust on these collected, pristine Pure Land teachings, painstakingly and earnestly explained by each one of these truly accomplished masters. The treatise masters from India to the West, and the eminent monks from China and Japan, clarified the true intent of the great sage's appearance in this world, revealing that Amida's primal vow accords with the capacities of beings. The Mahasattvas and teachers of the tradition who propagated the sutras, save boundless beings of grave evil and defilements. Both monks and lay people of this present age, should, with one mind, solely trust the expositions of these great masters. Though truly well versed in the lifetime teachings and practices taught by Shakyamuni Buddha, on all the major Theravada and Mahayana traditions, yet, all the 7 lineage teachers ultimately took the true Pure Land path, and were born in Amida Buddha's land of peace and bliss. It was through their wisdom and direct experience that made them finally chose the Pure Land gate for freeing themselves and escaping from samsara, the vicious cycle of birth, suffering and death. Thus, Master Shinran and the 7 lineage masters strongly encouraged all mundane foolish persons, bamboo, like ourselves, miserable human beings who simply lack the spiritual capacity and aptitude for difficult, self-powered, Buddhist practices, to entrust ourselves single-heartedly, in Amida Buddha's primal vow, the other power that guarantees our complete freedom from all pain and suffering. They repeatedly urged us, through their wonderful expositions of the sutras and personal realizations, to take this easy path especially made for foolish spiritual idiots, that absolutely assures our attainment of Buddhahood at the end of our present lives. Shinran Shonin, 1173 to 1263, the Venerable founder of Shin Buddhism, was born in Kyoto, Japan. His family came from the Fujiwara clan. Having lost both his parents at a tender age of 9, he was guided by his uncle Noitsuna, who later brought him to Mount Hiei, the most famous center for Buddhist teachings and practices in Japan at that time. As he himself wished, Master Shinran was quickly ordained into monkhood and diligently practiced Tendai Buddhism under eminent Buddhist masters. Yet, after 20 years of studies and rigorous practices, excelling himself in both meditative and non-meditative disciplines, he was completely disillusioned. With deep introspection, he found that being an extremely foolish person of deep evil, his serious studies and arduous practices were useless and would not bring him any closer to enlightenment in his life. Therefore, taking an extremely bold step forward, he painfully left Mount Hiei, seeking to find another path to enlightenment. In a mental state of utter anguish, he decided to take a 100-day retreat at Rokkaku-do, a temple in Kyoto dedicated to Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara and built by Shotoku Taishi, the Japanese prince who introduced Buddhism to Japan. Sincerely praying to Shotoku Taishi, considered to be a manifestation of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, To show him an appropriate path to enlightenment, Master Shinran received a revelation on the 95th day, in a dream, to visit Master Hunen, who was then actively propagating the Pure Land teaching based exclusively on saying the Buddha's name, Nembutsu. Listening deeply for 100 consecutive days to the Dharma teachings of Master Hunen, who was truly learned in all aspects of the Buddha Dharma, Master Shinran was fully convinced that he had found for himself a good teacher, a knowledgeable Dharma friend. Thus, under the mentorship of Master Hunen, he cleared all his doubts and entrusted himself single-heartedly in Amida's primal vow. Receiving the Buddha's inconceivable gift of salvation at the age of 29, he knew, there and then, that he would become a Buddha in Amida's Pure Land, the moment his physical life ended. However, in the year 1207, when the Japanese authorities began persecution of the Nembutsu teaching, Master Shinran, stripped off his monkhood, was exiled to Echigo province, a remote old province in north-central Japan. Yet, he continued to spread the precious Nembutsu teaching to the simple folks in the countryside, while living an extremely harsh life as a simple, normal layperson, married with children. After about 4 years in exile, he was pardoned in 1211, but he did not return to Kyoto, as he chose to continue propagating the precious Amida Dharma to the people who needed it most. In the year 1214, he moved to live in the Hitachi province, and in the Kanto region, present-day Tokyo area, he tirelessly explained the teaching of Faith and Nembutsu. During almost 20 years of his residence in that area, common illiterate folks and householders who earnestly followed his teachings must have numbered in tens of thousands. In around the year 1232, when he was about 60 years old, the Venerable Master decided to move back to Kyoto. The probable reason for that move back to Kyoto, where there was abundance of reference Buddhist texts, sutras and commentaries, was perhaps to allow him to concentrate on writing down what he had been taught, his realizations and intimate experiences on the true Pure Land way. Since he knew, without any doubt, that this wonderful Amida Dharma offers the only assured path of salvation, he passionately wanted to record it for all evil, foolish persons like himself and others, who ardently wish to be permanently freed from all pain and suffering. That magnificent and extremely difficult task of accurately collecting and establishing the essential teachings relevant to this easy path out of samsara, took Master Shinran over 30 years to accomplish. Arising from this compassionate endeavor to benefit himself and others, for his and future generations, he systematically composed his magnum opus, the Kyo Gyo Shin Sho, teaching, practice, faith and realization on the Pure Land way. Together with his other large treasury of wonderful writings, poems and letters, he had formed and developed a complete, consistent approach that had led to his own profound realization on the path of faith and Nembutsu, which he eagerly wished to share with others. Although he had devoted his whole life to the dissemination of the pristine Amida Dharma of salvation for all suffering beings, through faith and Nembutsu, Master Shinran never intended to form a separate sect. He considered himself to be just a follower of his teacher Hunen. However, the compelling appeal of his wonderful and beautiful writings soon solidified his profound thoughts and realization of salvation into the Jodo Shinshu Buddhist tradition. Having lived through a life of torturous trials and tribulations, both as a monk as well as a householder, one in which he was finally awakened by the light of the Buddha's boundless compassion, the Venerable Master had displayed to us that even hopeless ordinary persons, filled with blind passions, can be saved. He was therefore profoundly grateful to the Buddhas and the 7 Pure Land Masters for their compassion and heartfelt benevolence in transmitting the precious teaching of faith and Nembutsu to him. His fervent wish was that others would also listen deeply to this precious Pure Land Dharma, pristinely passed down from Shakyamuni Buddha through the ages, and quickly receive Amida Buddha's gift of salvation. Thus, truly settled in mind and heart, immersed in the Nembutsu of gratitude, and clear knowledge that he would become a Buddha at the end of his life of delusion, our Venerable Master Shinran returned to the land of peace and bliss on January 16, 1263 at the age of 90. The Kyo Gyo Shin Sho, Teachings, Practice, Faith and Realization, Master Shinran's masterpiece, written in classical Chinese in 6 volumes, captures the complete teaching that allows ordinary foolish people to gain enlightenment through simple entrusting faith, Shinjin, in Amida Buddha, and his primal vow. It is an amazing spiritual pilgrimage and journey of discovery through the ages, from the enlightenment of Shakyamuni Buddha to the chronological dispensation of this wonderful Pure Land Dharma by the 7 lineage teachers, to Master Shinran, and now to wretched sentient beings like ourselves. The Venerable Master's basis for quoting only the specially selected passages from the sutras and the expositions of the lineage masters was to testify the absolute truth of salvation for all suffering beings, that freely flowed entirely from Amida Buddha's vow mind. Having to sift through the enormous amount of teachings from each and every one of the 7 Pure Land Masters before him, Master Shinran carefully collected only what was essential and leaving out what was not relevant to his own awakening to the marvelous working of Amida's vow of great compassion. He was unconcerned about the criticisms of others whose minds are not really rooted in Amida Buddha's salvation. Master Shinran's benevolent aspiration to benefit future generations effectively now comes to miserable persons like us, in the form of his Kyo Gyo Shin Sho, poems and other wonderful writings. Those who have listened deeply to Master Shinran's expositions would definitely see the profound systematization on his true Pure Land thoughts and spiritual awakening that solely focus on the inconceivable gift of salvation bestowed by Amida Buddha through his primal vow. Aptly expressing his single-hearted refuge in this wondrous compassionate vow that effectively saves all beings in pain and suffering, he passionately wrote, "My heart and mind stand rooted in the Buddha ground of the universal vow, and my thoughts and feelings flow within the Dharma realm." Master Shinran earnestly urged us to leave all non-Buddhist paths, which are false teachings that definitely and firmly keep us in samsara, and to put aside all other Buddhist paths which are just provisional teachings which cannot free us permanently from suffering in this Dharma-ending age. This precious human existence has given us an extremely rare opportunity now, after countless billions of dreadful transmigrations in samsara, to extricate ourselves from the endless cycle of pain and suffering. He sincerely exhorts us, the multitudes of foolish beings drowning in the ocean of suffering, those who have good karma from the past, and have realized that they are incapable of saving themselves by their own self-power, to seize this rare opportunity of coming into Amida's presence, by listening deeply to Amida Buddha's Dharma of salvation. Here, receive and accept the inconceivable gift of Shinjin from Amida Buddha and say the virtuous name, which surpass our conceptual understanding, for as long as we live in this unsatisfactory world. Listening deeply to the incomparable True Pure Land expositions of Master Shinran, based exclusively on Faith and Nembutsu, may all foolish mundane persons like us be brought to single-heartedly accept the true Pure Land path. All suffering persons who wish to be freed from samsara should mindfully take heed of his benevolent advice, and be free of doubt. May all persons who are brought here due to their good karma from the past, make full use of this extremely rare human birth, before it quickly comes to the inevitable end. Abandoning all self-power meditative and non-meditative practices, and entrusting our karmic destiny entirely to Amida Buddha and the primal vow, we say the Buddha's name in deep gratitude to the Buddha for saving us. Thus, we have definitely heard the call of boundless compassion,